Are you confused about the metaverse? Of course you are. That's why you're here. Well, join the club. The internet is full of convoluted, confusing answers about what the metaverse is. So what is the metaverse and how does it work? Ooh, don't you worry. I'm gonna break it all down in ways we can actually understand. Go figure. Hey friends, I'm Tasia Custode and welcome back to my YouTube channel where I share tech tips and app reviews. And today is a special one because on my quest to find out what the heck the metaverse actually is and how it works, I realized it's best explained by a friend and colleague of mine who is way more well-versed in the metaverse. See what I did there? So today's video is my first ever collab, an interview with my friend and metaverse connoisseur, Graye Williams. Consider this your metaverse crash course. You ready? Then let's go. So basically, Graye, the best way when I'm asked how I can describe the metaverse, and I don't know if I'm right on this, but my super lowbrow explanation would be, it's like a virtual reality world. And so I'm wondering, A, if that scratches the surface of what it is, but also B, in layman's terms, what is the metaverse?
You're partially right there. Like the metaverse, the idea that we're getting from a lot of the promotional material that we're seeing is that it is a virtual world, and you have to put, one of these things on. This is a virtual reality headset from Facebook, I guess Meta now. It's the Meta Quest 2, and that's one way that the metaverse can present itself. But if we start to think of the metaverse more as a concept, let's think of how we interact with each other on the internet right now, which is asynchronously. It's not in time with each other. And so, I write a tweet. You see that tweet a couple of hours later. You reply to that tweet. You see an Instagram post, you like it, and it's a day between when it was posted and when it happens. The metaverse is more about immediacy. It's more about actually being there with each other, whether that is in a virtual space together, whether that is attending something digitally together. And so, what we're doing right now is more metaverse than it is Web 2.0. We're actually talking to each other, inhabiting this digital space together. So one of the ways that we can do that is through things like this, or we can do it through things like this. And so headsets like this give you the ability to feel like you're in the same space, even though you're not.
I would think it kind of makes it seem similar to maybe like it's more of like the metaverse is more of all a catch-all term maybe, and really it's like cyberspace. Maybe it could be interchangeable with it. But it also might be helpful then if we go over a little history maybe of like a quick little history of the internet to see kind of how we got to what we're all using this catch-all term, the metaverse. That might be helpful for people.
For sure. And so when we think about the internet as it was, when it first came out, I was there right back at the beginning. I was, 12 years old, I think, and writing, slip scripts to get online by having the telephone modem in my computer call a server, which then gave me access to this vast interconnected network of servers. And so this is one of the things that sort of metaverse and what we're also hearing is Web 3 is doing. Back then, the internet was vastly decentralized. If you wanted to run your own website, you could do it off your own server at home, or you could have a server that you had rights to in the internet, where you put your information there. And when we wanted that data, we'd say, I would like this page from this computer, and we'd go through all of these hops, and we'd find the computer that it's sitting on, and it would send it all the way back to us. Web 2.0 basically took that sort of broadcast method, because you'd write a web page, and that web page was pretty much static and didn't have any sort of interactivity to it for the most part. Web 2.0 gave us interactivity, where we could comment on things, where we could basically have a two-way discussion. But it also brought with it something called centralization. When we think of the internet right now, I think a lot of people think of Google. Google bought Blogger. We think of Facebook and Instagram. We think of Twitter. These are centralized services where we are basically going and interacting with each other on somebody else's property. It's taken all of that decentralization and brought it back into this set of properties and lumps all around the internet. Web3 actually is looking to decentralize this and push this back out so that there's no one place that we're having to go to again. And we're starting to see things like Google and Facebook looking at this. And over the course of the last 4 or 5 years, them providing these platforms for people to be on has actually become kind of dangerous for them, because people are saying things that perhaps they don't necessarily agree with, or may be illegal, or may just cause conversations that they don't want to be responsible for. So I think that's one of the reasons why we're seeing the push to Web3 and to Metaverse. So Metaverse now takes all of these centralized spaces, and we're looking at it right now where it might possibly, again, explode these outwards again, where there are virtual places that we can be. But because of the way that they are hosted and because of the way that we interact with each other, you may have your own personal space that belongs to you again, and people can connect with you in that space. So the idea of cyberspace is putting the space back into cyberspace, where we now have places to call our own. We have places that we can actually go and visit where people have things that they call their own. And so it's really taken that and put the ball back in the user's court. There's now a piece of the internet that you get to own again, possibly. You'll still go to places like Facebook's Horizon, or Meta's Horizon, pardon me, which is one of these places where they've got spaces for work and spaces for play. But a lot like how we have our homes right now, and possibly we go to work or we go to gyms, we may see that start to push out as the metaverse. I've got my space, I can go places as well. And through decentralization, it all starts to feel a little bit more spread out and a little bit more equal again.
So it's funny you touch on Facebook or Meta. I want to talk to you about that later a little bit more. But now that we kind of understand a little bit of the history and what the basics of the metaverse are, let's get into some real world. Okay, maybe that's not a great term. Let's get into what it actually means when we're talking about, use cases like right now. How are people using the metaverse right now? What are you seeing?
So a lot of it has come down to sort of, big corporations taking the risk in building these things out. We saw that there was a Justin Bieber concert that was available exclusively on the metaverse. And so having sort of big event things where we're gathering people again in towards a centralized point. With the Super Bowl, there's currently now an online lounge where you can go and have a virtual beer. I'm not sure I want to do either of those things, but I guess some people do. And right. So the real implications are, and this actually kind of really sort of pays into what's happened over the course of the last 2 years. If you've been in lockdown for COVID-19, if you haven't been able to go somewhere, but you wanted to go somewhere, now being able to break through the barriers of the actual physical world and go visit that in the digital world, that's one of the applications. We've been looking at this for a number of clients for the agency that I work with, and the idea of, virtual retail stores. It's kind of an interesting one, because do I actually need to have this idea of a store that I walk around and look around at things? And that brings us to something called, stay with me on this one, skeuomorphism. If you remember back when the iPhone first came out, right, the notepad on an iPhone looked like a notepad, the calendar looked like a calendar, and they looked like real world things as opposed to digital interpretations of these things. And that can be really powerful because they're things that we're familiar with. But when you start to think about it, do we actually need to replicate the real world in the digital world? We're seeing this moment right now where we've got things like roads between metaverse spaces. We've got blocks of things in metaverse spaces, and they feel familiar. But if you want my opinion, I don't think it's the right way to go. Why would I actually want to have to walk down a digital street when I can teleport there or walk through a portal? And I think this is one of the things that we're going to see with Metaverse, is we're going to see some people struggle with this idea of trying to basically graft the real world into the digital world just for the sake of familiarity. It might work for the first little bit, but I think once we kind of unlock the possibilities in our minds of what these things could be, it's going to be a very, very different way of interacting.
You brought up like the Super Bowl lounge and Justin Bieber concert, and there's people like Paris Hilton did a DJ set in the metaverse, and that's something that's very time specific, correct? We had to attend that when it was happening, virtually together type thing. And then when it's over, it's over. Is it always like that? Can you choose if if your metaverse is like that. Does that make sense?
It does. And so this kind of gets into the concept of what the metaverse can be. Currently, right now, the idea of immediacy, the idea of being there is very powerful, right? Be here now, because if you're not, it's never going to exist again. I think that's what it's going to be like for the next little while, because we're trying to motivate people to actually take part. The challenge is that I think that's not going to be compelling for people who weren't able to. You know, right now, I play a game called Destiny 2. And in that game, starting next week, there is a mission that is the culmination of a year's long worth of effort. It's going to be around for 1 week. I've actually been in positions where things like this have happened before, and I've been camping, I've been on vacation. And so the idea of this scarcity, which it's one of those things that we're trying to bring to digital, I think, because when things don't have scarcities, I feel like sometimes their value feels lower for people. But that scarcity can also be quite detrimental if you can't take part. So I think what we're going to see is, for the next little while, there will be immediacy. But when you think of it this way, if I was able to attend that concert later, I won't be able to interact with anyone, but being able to almost watch along, where I'm a ghost in this space where I can't interact, but I could still see what happened and see what went on. I think that's going to be a powerful thing for us. And since everything that's happening here is digital, recording things in perfect fidelity from every angle that can move backwards and forwards in time, I think that's going to be an incredibly compelling way for people to experience things, even if they've been there, experiencing them again after the fact.
So it's kind of like this balance of like FOMO and wanting to capitalize on FOMO. If I'm Paris Hilton, like I want people to either pay or whatever to like get it in the moment. However, if my fans can't do that, they can watch from the background, like a replay almost. Okay, so I think I'm following, but I want to talk a little bit more about, well, we can get into the blockchain in a second because that's gonna be a whole other thing. But I just want to make sure, like, little old me understands exactly, what this is. So is everything like a likeness of us? Is it a likeness of me and you? Can you build an avatar? Is it like an animated person? Like what does it actually look like if someone's a super noob to the metaverse like me? How do I know, like, who am I interacting with? What do I look like? Can I make that customized? Am I making sense? Okay.
And this is sort of one of those interesting things where, online you are who you purport to be, or at least you can be who you purport to be. And so the idea of creating an avatar that doesn't look like you, may not be the same gender, may not be the same ethnicity, may not be human, and quite often aren't. And so the ability to have an avatar that does not resemble you is a powerful thing. Because, for some people, it can be a way of stepping around bias. It can be a way of stepping around how we expect the world to be seen. And so looking at that, can you build avatars that are completely off the wall crazy? In some aspects you can. We haven't seen any places so far that have had any sort of requirement that your avatar resembles you. Facebook/Meta, their avatar builder is very much, it is human normative as an approach to what things look like. But I think for a lot of people that are sort of starting to look into Metaverse, that's an incredibly restricting way to be. So can you look like yourself? Yes. Can you look like somebody else? Yes. Can you look like something else? Yes. The question is, what's going to be acceptable as the Metaverse goes forwards and in which spaces? And that's a question we're answering right now.
Then I want to move on to the blockchain a little bit, because a lot of times when people hear about the metaverse, they're hearing things about like blockchain or like crypto, and there's all these other words flying around. So first of all, it's going to be important if you can explain what the blockchain is and then how it's part of the metaverse.
So blockchain is a technology that does interact with the metaverse, but isn't required for it. And so when we start to think about this, the blockchain technology essentially is just a whole bunch of different computers that are keeping track of an ongoing ledger, right? It's just an ongoing recording of transactions. And there are these things called blocks, which they fill up with a certain number of transactions. These spread out groups of computers all look at it and go, yep, these transactions are valid. And if enough of them say that, then that block is committed to the chain. It's used for a bunch of different things. Right now it's used for cryptocurrency because when I want to give you $1, I have to tell the blockchain I'm giving you $1. And once that's agreed upon, then that dollar is given to you. Whereas with other systems right now, if you don't have that distributed ledger, if you don't have that validation, it's either validated in one central place, which is vulnerable, right? You hack that one computer and all of a sudden we've got transaction problems. Or if you're looking at not being able to validate that, if I try to give $1 to you and $1 to somebody else, and it doesn't have that sort of lockup, we're looking at, again, being able to defraud the system. So blockchain on the whole is actually a really reliable way for us to make sure that transactions are valid. You've probably heard about the environmental aspects of blockchain. That's something called proof of work, where these computers are doing work constantly to do this, and they're really burning up energy with video cards and specialized processors. Proof of stake actually reduces the amount of energy required, and it's kind of validating through a bunch of approved servers. It's a little bit more centralized, but it's way better for the environment. Where this comes in with Metaverse, though, is that decentralization that I was talking about earlier. We're looking at, Facebook having servers and Google having servers and Twitter having servers. It's all centralized. Now, if we're looking at this and we're hosting a Metaverse experience through the blockchain, it's distributed across all of these other computers. So there's no one place where your Metaverse space exists aside from that address. So it can be a really powerful way of being able to step back from, big tech, as folks are saying it right now, have your own little piece of the internet that is now spread across all of these servers, but validated by everyone. It gives us something that is secure, something that is more protected, and something that is basically for users far more powerful.
So you touched on a few things that got me thinking about maybe safety in the metaverse. And there have been a couple little articles and reports I was reading on, like a woman felt, she was basically assaulted by other users, I guess is, how I would put it in layman's terms. What are the safety protocols in place? Are there any? Do users self-police? How do these then translate offline, so to speak, in terms of bringing people to justice if, crimes are committed, because it is kind of still a personal attack in that way?
So looking at that, the boundaries that are applied by different systems are going to be the rules that you play by in any given space. And I think one of the things here is going to be awareness for anybody that's getting into a metaverse space, so they know what the boundaries are as they get in. Meta, Facebook, has done a really good job introducing something called personal boundary, which essentially is a 4-foot radius around you where people cannot enter. And if they do try to enter, their hands disappear. They can't be in that space. You can actually set it so that it's a force field so they can't even get close into that space. It's made for some interesting things. One, people can no longer do the same sort of griefing, abuse that they were causing to people before. It has made something very interesting, though, which is if you were going to try to high five someone or fist bump them, you now have to reach right outside. With one of your controls, you got to reach right outside so that you're way back here in order to be able to give somebody a fist bump or a super high five. It's something they're working around right now.
I don't know. I kind of want this in real life right now. Like, give me a wide berth.
We've had practice with the 6 feet for the last couple of years, and we've seen that that's not working so well. So I do think I want a bubble. I think you're right.
Okay, so you did mention Meta a little bit, and I think it's, to wrap up on this, to give everybody a quick history, Facebook changed its name to Meta. And that's left some people confused as to what their role in the metaverse is. So I want you to clarify a little bit. What is their role in the metaverse? Does Facebook own the metaverse? Does the name Meta have nothing to do with the metaverse? Explain.
So sure, the name Meta for Facebook does have metaverse connotations. It's very much meant to be, we're the company that is pushing metaverse forwards. Let's be clear, they're not the only one. They really desperately want this to be a thing that succeeds because, again, over the course of the last 5 years, they've had a number of missteps that have just made them disliked on all sides of the dice. And so what they have done is they bought a company called Oculus, which makes these guys. I've got an original Oculus dev kit from 2012. It's a cool little company that's really stepping into this first. And they poured a ton of money into what was now the Oculus Quest 2, is now the Meta Quest 2, in an effort to get this into the hands of consumers. This right now sells for, I think it's $299 US, it's $399 Canadian. It's 128 gigabyte set, which is incredibly cheap for the type of technology that you get here. This is a standalone VR headset that should cost $600. They're taking a loss on this right now. That's how much they believe in it. they are by no means the only people in the space. Valve has their Index headset. HP has their G2. There are a number of other headsets that are available that will give you access to the virtual world part of the metaverse. So Facebook doesn't control it. They want to, but they don't. They are not the only ones playing in the space. What they are doing, though, is they're giving consumers a relatively cheap way to get into this. I'm not a huge fan of Facebook or Meta, and I think that's pretty much on record with a lot of people. I felt comfortable buying this for a couple of reasons. One, you can sideload software on here, so it doesn't have to be Facebook software. You can separate your Facebook account from your Meta account now, your Oculus account, which is good. Looks like it might have less telemetry, less tracking. And three, me buying this cost Mark Zuckerberg money, and that felt really good to me.
Zing! Thank you so much, Graye. This was so helpful. We may have to do a part 2.
I will have my avatar join your avatar. They'll do lunch.
No PCR test required.
But antivirus, absolutely necessary.
Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. Thanks so much, Graye. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Talk about your complete beginner's guide to the metaverse. Wowza. Did you learn as much as I did? Let me know in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, well, I want to know. So give it a like, a share, or leave that comment below. You can click right about here to subscribe to my channel, and here for even more content like this. Thanks again so much for watching my first ever collab. We'll see you next time.